Redmond High School Pre-Calculus presents an introduction to complex numbers. By the end, you should know how to add both real and imaginary numbers, along with figuring out how to properly use I. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful farm. It was known as the Complex Animal Farm. One day, the farmers were counting their animals.
1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 pandas,
said the panda farmer.
1, 2, and I have 2 unicorns,
said the unicorn farmer.
2 unicorns? You can't have 2 unicorns. Unicorns are imaginary, and I don't think you can count things that don't exist.
How will we ever count the amount of unicorns I have, or even more important, how many total animals are on our farm?
I can help you. And don't worry, I'm not talking about myself.
It's I guy.
I am talking about imaginary and complex numbers, along with the concept of I, which is equal to the square root of -1.
Well, then why don't you just say the square root of -1?
Because that's impossible. No one can find the square root of a negative number. Instead, we represent the square root of -1 as I. And just like I doesn't exist, neither do unicorns. They're all imaginary.
Well, what do we do when we have more than one unicorn? Or more importantly, what do we do when we have more than one I?
Well, that's where it gets tricky. With I, if you're the square root of -25, then you start out by taking the square root of the 25. Since we know that 5 times 5 is equal to 25, we can reduce the square root of -25 to simply 5 times the square root of -1. And what does the square root of -1 equal?
I.
Exactly. That means we can infer that the square root of -25 is equal to 5i.
Well, that's great. But what if we wish to add the real animals and the imaginary animals together? How will we manage to do that?
Well, that's easy. Let's say you have 40, but you have to add 33i to it. Because they do not share a common factor, we cannot simply just add them together. Therefore, they are simply represented by 40 plus 33i. And because they're so complex when you add real and imaginary numbers together, we call them complex numbers.
Alright, so now let's count all of the animals on the farm. So, I have 4 pandas.
And I have 2 unicorns. No, wait, 2 I unicorns.
And then, when we add them, they come together to 4 plus 2i animals. That means we have 4 plus 2i animals on our farm.
Congratulations, guys. You now know how to count both imaginary things and real things.
Thanks,
I
guy. Without you, I doubt we ever would have known how to count something which is imaginary, let alone know how many animals are on our farm.
And so the farm lived happily ever after, with the newfound knowledge of real, imaginary, and complex numbers, with the help of the mathematical genius I guy.